Good morning. I'm Todd, and welcome to Todd's Talk. Today, we are going to be doing a deep dive into inflation, what we can do about it, and how it happened, and basically the who, the how, the why, and what realistically we can do to combat this issue. I'm going to try to go over the myths and the facts about it. It is an absolute myth that Joe Biden himself caused inflation. Inflation has basically gotten worse in every single country because of the COVID-19 pandemic interrupting the supply and demand. So inflation is happening in every country, and even if government spending caused inflation, it would only be in our country, not in every single country. But also, to help with the supply and demand issue, there was a unanimous bill that passed, or at least on the Senate side, I should say. I think it was three votes short in the House to from being unanimous, that completely upgraded the rules and regulations for ocean travel to help address this issue, because that was a problem. Now, also, one of the inflection points of inflation was the fact that we started putting tariffs on farm goods with China, and some countries reciprocated this policy in a token of good faith. When you put tariffs on farm goods and other goods, I should say, it's not a good policy. Farm goods, those are consumer products. Those are the essential products that we use. It took a while to happen, but it did happen. And also, just to let you know, I am doing this video just as an FYI because inflation is going to be weaponized for this upcoming election, and I want voters to actually know the causes and effects of inflation, not what one side says. But also, let's go into what could have been done to stop inflation. Do you all remember the Dodd-Frank legislation? There's actually a loophole in that legislation that allows corporations to price gouge us. So if there would have been a price control provision in that legislation, inflation would not be in effect, at least in the United States. But that provision was taken out. And since we live in an American policy time where instead of fighting for good policy, we pass weaker policy just to get the policy done, which is kind of counterintuitive. Dodd-Frank was a good piece of legislation, but note to self, I have to look to see what's still left of Dodd-Frank. But also, now we're going to go back to the tariffs. Like I was talking about in a previous video, currently tariffs are funding steel jobs in the Ohio and Pennsylvania here in the United States. So it's a question of what do you do to replace the funding source when they're actually funding major jobs. They're a major income source. If we take away those tariffs, people lose jobs. Now, also, the basic measure is to let the Federal Reserve Bank, up interest rates, which they are actually going to decide if it's going to be a 0.75 or a full 1 point interest rate hike this week. Now, that, is always cause for concern because it makes basically borrowing money for if you have any type of lines of credit more expensive. So it's already it was working, but I guess just in one particular quarter we had less than 1 point go back up a little bit. It's not totally out of control. It when you have like less than a point go back up, if it was like 5 points, 10 points both go back up, then it is out of control. But it just went back up by a fourth of a point. So the current Fed is continuing interest rates until such time that the interest rate, or excuse me, the interest rate hike will continue until the inflation rate is approximately 2%. We are currently at 8%, so we got a long way to go. There are other factors into inflation, but right now the main one is at 8%. The cost of goods are actually going down. So, but when they decide to hike interest rates, they only look at the one. But also, the other thing I wanted to touch upon in this video is that one of the easiest ways to not have inflation is to actually keep up with the cost of inflation. And I'm talking as at government spending. We could have just kept up with the current cost of living. No problem. But when you have conservative Democrats whining about inflation and not authorizing spending, we get inflation. They withheld funds for so long, and when they finally agreed to fund certain projects, there was, the inflation rate had gone up 5 points. So, yeah, Joe Manchin does not know how inflation works. And also, speaking of that legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act is going to take time to lower energy costs, but the immediate benefactor of that will be in healthcare. So, also, if anything that will affect inflation will be the student debt relief program. Because since it is targeted, and since it's going to be forgiving a significant amount of debt for people, less debt has a better effect on GDP. The Wall Street Journal did an interesting study on this, and I encourage you all to read it. Final note, the microphone has been acting up, so if you're watching this video, please use the highest volume you can. I am working to fix this, so I'm waiting on my new microphone. So thank you for watching. I'm Todd. Like, comment, subscribe, and like I've been saying recently, share and also watch the full video.